Hi everyone, my name's Temi and I'm the founder of the 4Front project. So 4Front is a member-led youth organization and we are empowering young people and our communities to fight for justice, peace and freedom. We support members with experiences of violence and the criminal justice system to create change in their own lives, to create change in their communities and to create change in our society. So why do we exist? In London alone, more than 193 teenagers were killed between 2009 and 2019. And these murders are only the tip of the iceberg. So how many young people have been victims of violence and they survive? How many young people actually access therapeutic support after they've experienced violence? And how many young people actually receive bereavement support after they lose a friend? For us, death is always a communal experience, but there's always an additional layer of trauma, and that trauma is communal when a young person is killed in such a violent way. Unfortunately, successive governments have actually failed to address the root causes of this violence. Poverty and rising inequality is actually one of the biggest contributing factors. And this is Graham Park Estate in Northwest London, where I grew up. It's also where 4Front is based. And young people who live in environments like this are disproportionately exposed to this type of violence. Other root causes include marginalization, school exclusions, homelessness, addiction, unemployment, unaddressed trauma, undiagnosed mental illnesses, and institutional racism and discrimination contribute to all of these factors. So racial inequity is driving violence, unaccountability is driving violence, and the criminal justice system itself is also driving violence. So the UK prefers a punitive approach towards violence over a more healing-centered approach. But if we truly want to understand the full impacts of violence on young people, we have to acknowledge all of the ways in which they're exposed to violence. And the criminal justice system is, at this point in time, the only apparatus that exists in our society to deal with violence. But most of us fail to acknowledge the extreme harm that this system inflicts at every single level. So from policing to prisons, the criminal justice system is inherently violent and it perpetuates more violence in our communities. And frequent police violence and brutality results in young Black people being over-criminalized and underprotected. The Black community is disproportionately represented at every stage of the criminal justice system, and we're therefore disproportionately more likely to experience this systemic violence. So young Black people need more love, they need more care, they need more support, and this is all because of their overexposure to both communal violence and state violence too. So they need holistic support services which are actually designed to meet their specific needs. Since 4Front was established in 2012, we have been able to pioneer an approach that empowers the young people who are most directly harmed by this kind of violence and the criminal justice system to be at the forefront of a grassroots movement for change. We fundamentally believe that there's a difference between reducing violence and building peace. Our work is holistic. We center healing and transformative justice whilst directly challenging this country's addiction to criminalization, policing, and prisons. By amplifying our members' voices and advocating for a holistic approach to build peace, we have been able to transform the way in which this society understands how to support these young people, as well as shaping the agenda around how to tackle all of these systemic
Can I join the meeting?
Okay, come. I've been interrupted in my pitch, but we have a youth activism coordinator here who wants to say something.
Two of them. Hello. Wait, what's this meeting about?
They want to learn more about 4Front.
Who would they like to know? Should we tell them?
You could tell them, but we have a time limit, so go quickly.
All right. Hello, by the way, guys. Can everyone hear me?
They won't be able to tell you.
All right, cool. Where do we start? 4Front is a great place. 4Front is a big impact on our lives, and the way
we think, the way we live. It's education. It's also a safe place for us to come and relax. But we learn at the same time as we're relaxing. And everyone here is a family, so a big community unit. So yeah, that's 4Front.
And it's just a part of like shaping our minds and education. Like I don't know. I feel like I was even talking about earlier. I feel like 4Front it educates me on so much stuff that I don't know. Like you won't learn outside. Like since I came, I've learned so much stuff about my own history. Do you understand what I'm saying? And these areas and stuff like that. Do you understand what I'm saying? And it's just they do so much for us in our lives.
Okay, you guys can sit in on the rest of this pitch, but this was an unexpected interruption. But stay. So I was going to say also that whilst we're supporting young people to create change in their own lives and uplifting their voices to create change in this system, our service has been shaped by young people like Eugene here, who we work with as members rather than offenders or any other kind of label that, you know, creates a negative association to accessing support. I know that coronavirus has impacted the whole world in completely unimaginable ways, but our members have already been experiencing these multiple disadvantages, all of which have been exacerbated by coronavirus. And in particular, we have young people who we're working with who are in prisons and they're suffering because of the extreme lockdown measures inside prisons. Most of them in solitary confinement, 23-hour lockup, with prohibited visitation, limited communications. We've got young people who are already in contact with the criminal justice system, and they've been disproportionately impacted by the new police powers. The majority of the young people we support are Black, and we know that coronavirus has disproportionately impacted our community. So there's a level of grief there as well. But despite this, we've continued to provide this vital support. We've adapted our working arrangements towards the beginning of this whole epidemic, and so that we were enabled to do as much of our service could continue operating as it usually did, whilst protecting collective public health. We've been providing our members with crucial advocacy. So when they've come into contact with police through stop and search or arrest, we've provided emotional support in police stations and courts. I must say that none of these places were adhering to government guidelines or social distancing or anything like that, but we've been in those places because the young people we work with needed our support there. We've been developing our communication so we can increase your awareness about the impact that coronavirus has had on our members, and particularly the disproportionate powers. You can see young people's own accounts of this on our website under 4Front Voices, where they talk about their experiences of policing. And we have also been working from the outside to call for the immediate release of incarcerated people and a mass reduction in the prison population. So we need your support. You can help us to build sustainability and help us to make more young people in a position of power to create change in their own lives. If you give us £1,500, we can hire one youth activism coordinator for 3 months. Eugene is a yak, so since he's here, what are yaks?
Yaks, like she said, is a youth activism coordinator. And the way I see it is, I don't know, it's kind of like we learn whilst working as well. Do you understand? We come here, we get educated, and obviously we get paid during that time. We're working on being activists. We're learning about how we can make a change in the system, and we discuss what we think the problems are, what problems we see in the system and how we can change them effectively and positively and just make our futures better.
Brilliant. So that's what our youth activism coordinators do. With £1,500, we can hire them for 3 months each, and we have 5 at the moment, but we would like to have more. So they complete our youth activism fellowship, and that enables them to speak truth to power, learn about the issues affecting our communities, as Eugene said, and develop new skills. £3,500 will help us to provide training for 100 young people in community response. It's mental health first aid training, emergency first aid training, community mobilization training, and self-care and transformative justice practices. And if we were able, by some miracle, to raise £14,000, we could hire another youth support worker for 6 months to work full-time. And our team is working here to support young people to process trauma and grief and stress in response to violence, bereavement, arrest, and imprisonment. They're providing one-to-one support to all our members, not just in the community, but in criminal justice institutions as well. We are helping our members and their families to understand the processes and their rights. We're acting as appropriate adults in the police station. We're monitoring interactions with the police. We're providing representation for our members in court. Overall, our support is increasing people's empowerment, building strength and sense of identity and their resilience. Thank you for your support.